Coming up, we talk about our impressions on the Disneyland Resort and interesting news from Disney Cruise Line. All that coming up this week on the Theme Park Land podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Theme Park Land podcast, episode 12, for the week of September 23rd, 4th. I probably
I'm starting to lose count of these episode numbers, so we might just...
I keep thinking to myself, what if we do,
episode whatever.
459 one day, and we can actually remember all the way up to that.
Are we going to live that long?
Who knows? I mean, today's the Rapture Day, apparently, according to TikTok, so... No, that was yesterday, excuse me. That was yesterday.
I thought it was today.
Buddy, it ain't gonna be now.
Allegedly, the Rapture was actually invented by somebody in the 1800s. The Rapture, as we identify with it today, but that's... I'm just going to stop talking about it.
Guys, welcome to a theme park show where we talk about the Rapture, apparently. I'm your host, Matt Dobrovolsky, joined again by my Rapture-knowing friend, Matt Rogers.
Hi, everyone.
Guys, I hope you're having an amazing week. Thanks again for tuning in. We're going to be completely honest. We kind of have a little bit of a slow news week, and
a little bit.
Yeah,
it's a very slow news week. My headlining item is the new roller coaster for Legoland California and Legoland Florida. It's called Galacticoaster. I'm just going to go right into it.
Oh, you just want to go right into it? Go
yep.
for it, because
I
have no idea.
This is big deal. Legoland is getting an indoor roller coaster, and it's probably one of the shortest roller coasters I've ever seen in my life. I've seen a plan of the layout. It's going to be low capacity, but it's indoor, it's air conditioned. I think there's some more things happening with it than they've announced that I might have some information on, but I'm not really going to say much. But if you look at the plans and look at what's out there, look at the layout, and if you look at what they announced, that's not it.
Is this
There's a little bit more.
Is this replacing anything over in Legoland, Florida?
Yes. The flying school. Yeah,
I was going to say, I haven't been there in years.
There was a roller coaster there called Flying School. It was the same layout as the Flight of the Hippogriff in Florida.
Okay.
Except it was a suspended roller coaster, so you hang below the tracks, and it sucked because it's one of the old school Vekoma suspended coasters with the big bulky harnesses, and it just rattles your head between them.
Ugh.
And so you go through this ride. You get on the ride. I remember my only experience on this ride. My friend, my best man Mike, and I, we go in, we get on it, up the lift, start going around the ride, get the crap beat out of us with our head banging back and forth, and we hit the brakes. We go around the corner into the station. And they do a second lap.
So they just...
It's 2 laps every ride.
Oh, okay.
And...
Is it that short of a ride, too?
Yeah, it's a very short... It's the Flight of the Hippogriff. Same layout.
Could you imagine
But there's just one train. There's just one train. So... yeah. It was past its prime. Good thing it's gone. Okay. And now there's a new indoor air-conditioned ride going in its place. So in Central Florida, that's a win.
Too, which... Then again, it's Legoland.
They don't need high-capacity rides, except when they do. But, it's something kind of unique. I know Legoland California. They are a more popular park, and they have higher attendance than the other Legolands, like in Florida and New York. So they need a higher capacity ride. When they got the Flying Theater for the Lego Movie Ride.
Right.
That one. Ours was the first version. We got a single theater in Florida. California has 2 theaters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
I actually went over there for the press event for that, and we got a chance to see it. Like, ride it. We rode it, I think, 2 or 3 times. Really cool ride. I mean, it's basically soaring along with a little bit of Flight of Passage on there.
I like it better than soaring because the range of motion in it's a little bit more.
Right, but I always said, like, oh my gosh, this is only 1 theater. That's horrible. That's horrible capacity. But then I guess, okay, Legoland doesn't get that many people. But even on, I think, because we were there opening day, it was shooting 2-hour waits.
So I was watching it for a while in its first year or 2 of operation. It would only average like a 35-minute wait.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Okay, so maybe it went down. But I mean, I haven't been back to the park.
But like I said, California has a 2-theater version, but they're getting this Galacticoaster ride as well. To my understanding, it's the same low-capacity one that they're getting here. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's something interesting and new for Legoland, so good for them. I do like Legoland parks as a concept. They're really neat.
Our Legoland is built way too far away from
the Central
Florida area.
Well, so our Legoland, the park didn't open as Legoland. It opened as Cypress Gardens, right? And they still have the gardens there.
Correct.
But Legoland saw that existing park that wasn't doing well, and they decided to reinvest in the property and bring Legoland to Florida.
Which, again, it was a great concept.
Well, looking back on it, I think Legoland should have just built a new park in Orlando.
Correct.
If Legoland wanted to be successful.
Now, they would have dealt with higher property taxes and acquisition there, too. But I think it would have paid off for them because you would have been able to get more of the tourists that frequent Central Florida.
And I think, and Legoland Florida has been about 15 years now, I think. But what's interesting is they haven't really had a huge crowd to pull from. They've been trying to pull from the Orlando crowd and the Tampa crowd. But now, because so many people are moving down here, Winter Haven, that area that it's in, is just blowing up with housing.
Oh, yeah, because it's one of the cheap areas.
They're starting to get a new clientele, a new heavy local clientele to attract.
Right.
So, and then they're still trying to pull from Tampa and Orlando. So it's an interesting...
Even us here in Claremont, I mean, yeah, I could do a straight shot down 27 to get me to Legoland, but it's going to take me an hour because of how 27 is set up. I mean, it's not a direct highway down.
So I think if the trend continues where Winter Haven, people keep moving to Winter Haven, this is going to be good for Legoland because they'll have a strong local clientele for families to pull from.
Right.
So finally, Legoland in Florida actually has a little bit of potential, whereas over the past 10 years or so, it hasn't really. They've really been struggling.
Right.
Legoland in California, I don't think they've ever really had that problem. It's in the SoCal area. I'm pretty sure. Carlsbad.
I thought it was No, I'm thinking SeaWorld is in San Diego.
It's in San Diego, but it's not too far out of LA.
Yeah.
So it's
in the Southern California area.
And it's always been busy because that area is so populated.
I mean, Southern California in general is massively populated. So we got to remember that too.
But good for them, and new attractions are always a good thing.
Right. Yeah, I think this will be an interesting thing. I mean, we as theme park nerds are appreciative of anything new.
Will it be enough to get me back to Legoland to pay $100 a person to get in there?
Yeah, I think I'd have to find a good discount or something like that before Now, I've said this. I want to take my kids one day to Legoland because that park is meant for kids. And to an adult theme park nerd, I could probably spend an hour there and be done. But if you have kids, you're going to love the place. You're going to love it.
And, that's with Legoland Florida in particular. Like I said, California is more developed. There's more to do there. Same thing if you look at Legoland in Windsor, Germany. Billund, I think that's the other one. They are much more developed.
Okay.
Than Florida is, because Florida was just a retrofit of an existing.
Florida also has restriction on land what they can do too. Because I know when they did the Peppa Pig amusement park, they just took over some of their parking lot.
Which
they
is
really
also
don't have that much space.
The Peppa Pig thing is kind of weird because there are other Peppa Pig theme parks and themed areas in the world. There's a few over in Europe.
It's not really a theme park. It's just an additional land, but you have to pay separately, I believe.
I wonder if at some point it's going to be integrated into the park. Maybe. I don't know. Because at, I think, Poulton's Park in the UK, it might be a different park, but there's a park over there. They have a Peppa Pig themed land that's about twice the size of the Peppa Pig theme park here in Florida. But it's just an extra land integrated into the already existing amusement park.
I mean, again, I also know nothing about Peppa Pig, so I probably walk in there.
She is sassy.
She's also British, isn't she?
And you're
Is that
not.
the one that I'm thinking of?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. Anyway, another somewhat new story that I wanted to kind of touch base on a little bit. Disney Cruise Line has two really huge discounts out right now. One of them is saving 40% on your entire voyage fare for select sailings. However, this was only running for a week. It started on Monday, right? Yeah, September 21st. Sunday, Sunday. In honor of World Gratitude Day. And it's for sailings between October 17th and December 19th. However, this is only running until the 25th for this discount. This is very interesting because this is 40% off for the general public. Normally, you can see deals like saving up to 35% as a Florida resident, special military discounts. Sometimes there's Canadian residents too, sometimes up to like 20 or 25%. I don't think I've ever seen a 40% discount for the general public on these select sailings. The other one that I actually took full advantage of, saving 50% off the third and fourth guest on select sailings, and that is only running, you can only book that up until October 12th, and this is on majority of sailings running from October 3rd through March 30th of next year. 50% off the third and fourth guest. The reason why I want to kind of mention this is, do we think Disney Cruise Line is struggling for this year end or the beginning of the year? I know the sailing that we're on in about 2.5 weeks now is, I think, about 95% sold out. Okay. Now, granted, this is over Columbus Day week. This is a typical fall break for a lot of schools, so that makes sense. But are they struggling with other cruises? Possibly, because it's normally around these times when kids are in school. I mean, the majority of parks are struggling as well because, again, this is known as the slower time for tourism because of kids and everyone being in school.
I think it's the economic squeeze.
I mean, that is possible as well.
I that's what I think it is.
I mean, it's entirely possible, yeah, because, you know, the economy, they may be worried about inflation again and all that kind of stuff. Again, I mean, we're not going to talk about the economics or anything of this, but it's fascinating that, you know, you even look at, like, past recessions and everything for the cruise line industry. Never have I seen Disney putting out that great of a sale. I also think this is potentially just to bring people over to Disney Cruise Line. And because I've been a firm believer
like a hook, line, and sinker.
True, yeah. Because it's, you know, I've told people this. If you can get on one Disney cruise, you are set for life. You're never going to really want to do another Disney vacation other than a cruise.
This will also help them get people over to create demand for these other ships they're building.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I mean, they're doubling their fleet, basically.
Yeah.
So they need the demand for that supply. They need to ensure and guarantee they have demand.
They want to make sure that they're pulling these people in.
So by doing this, they can pull in new people and then, in theory, generate demand to fill the supply they'll have.
And I think there isn't a struggle or anything like that for a Disney cruise demand or anything. I mean, like I said, 2.5 weeks from now, our cruise is selling out. Okay? 95% sold out. I think it's just trying to get the demand for those cruises that aren't always selling out. And look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. A Disney cruise vacation is better than a Walt Disney World vacation. Period. End of story. If you want a stress-free, more of a spontaneous, spur-of-the-moment type of a vacation where you don't need to do that type of planning and everything, go on a Disney cruise or just a cruise in general for that point. But if you're a family, I would highly suggest you do a Disney cruise. We've talked about that on the show before. It's so important to have that vacation moment. And this is now an opportunity to really do it at a great rate. That providing that you can book that 40% rate by the end of the week.
I honestly, I think maybe those are just some cruises they're just not able to fill, and they just want to fill them.
Yeah, because I will say the 3-night cruise that I'm on in January, where I took full advantage of that 50% off, the third and fourth guest, that is probably like 30 or 40% sold. Granted, 3-night out of Fort Lauderdale at the end of January, again, slower time frame, just a slower time period. Again, kids are back in school, as per usual, but what's better than going to the Caribbean and the Bahamas in the end of January when it's going to be nice and warm? So,
yeah.
But anyway, as we said, very slow kind of news week this week. So that's really all we've got.
That's all for the news.
On that. But we're going to move on now to talk about our impressions on the Disneyland Resort. Basically, what we wanted to talk about are our unique impressions of the Disneyland Resort. I got a chance to go to Disneyland when I was 6 years old, turning into 7, so this was back in 1999. Whereas Matt has had the opportunity to experience Disneyland as an adult. So he doesn't, no offense to you, but you didn't necessarily have that childhood experience. However, you had the adult experience of understanding what that park truly does mean to the Disney history and culture and everything.
Oh, I've known what it's meant for the better part of 2 decades. I think what's really interesting is, so I've grown up taking annual visits to Disney World, Magic Kingdom, and we'll just say Magic Kingdom is going to be our comparison because it's the most like Disneyland park in California, right? So when I think of a Disneyland, my only reference point was Magic Kingdom, right? I knew there's some more rides. I knew the park is a little bit smaller in California, but it's, Magic Kingdom is my reference point. So walking into Disneyland Resort, what's very interesting is, we stayed off-site, technically, a block away, and we're able to just walk from the hotel into the resort and go through security, and all that feels very much like the Florida parks, or more like Universal Orlando, because you got 2 parks right there next to each other, and you got the little hotels around it, and City Walk, and security, and everything. And then you have the gates of Disneyland, and you see Main Street Station, and it's about the same as it is in Magic Kingdom. It just looks a little smaller, quaint, right? But then when you step underneath the railroad on the Main Street USA, it is just this completely different vibe from Magic Kingdom.
Correct.
And it's, as an adult, what got me was instantly realizing and experiencing I am in a park that Walt designed. like Walt had direct involvement in
You
Main
can
Street
walk
USA.
where Walt.
Yes, and it's and I finally understood kind of what was going on, because on Main Street USA in Disneyland, the buildings are a lot smaller. It's all scaled down a little bit, or should I say Magic Kingdom is scaled up.
Right.
And I read somewhere, and it makes sense. It's big enough to create an environment to immerse you in, but small enough to be inviting. And that's what was really awesome about it. It was smaller, but it just worked as a small little town. And just kind of walking through Main Street, I mean, you have video of me. I cried.
I still have that video. I will never get that off my phone.
I cried going into this park. It was just, it's hard to put in words because it doesn't translate into Magic Kingdom's Main Street at all. I don't think it translates into any other Disney park.
True. Well, yeah, because, I mean, every single castle park has been built in a grander scale. You have Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom that was built as the sequel, if you will, to Disneyland, because that was when Roy was planning that, he knew that was what the Imagineers could do because it's been done. So they kind of played it safe a little bit, but at the same time they said, let's build it on a grander scale. That's why they made the castle, 3 times the height to its point. And no castle park has been, downsized to be what Disneyland has been.
I think Hong Kong.
Hong Kong to a point, and I think it was
in its original conception. Now they have the modified castle.
Whatever, the Castle of Magical Dreams.
It looks like a castle stacked on top of Sleeping Beauty Castle now.
Right.
Because it literally is.
Because what they did was they added on to it, and they put like the Beast Castle on there, and then they put like Cinderella's castle a little bit, because it's like a mashup of all the different castles. However, I haven't been to Hong Kong. I don't think that translates well because Main Street is still built to that quaint scale that we have in Disneyland that continued on in 2005 when they built Hong Kong Disneyland.
Right.
I don't think they increased the scale of Main Street for Hong Kong.
And the other thing I noticed going in to Disneyland's Main Street, the trees. Mm-hmm. They still have all their trees in Town Square in the hub.
Because remember, we used to have it down here.
And what was interesting, I think, is the trees that aren't in Town Square. Because Disneyland is more attractions packed in a tighter space than Magic Kingdom. For example, Space Mountain is right next to Town Square.
Right.
It's right on the other side of those buildings.
Sight lines are an issue in California.
But you don't see Space Mountain because they planted a couple big oak trees backstage in strategic places.
But you can still see it.
Yes, but it's not
different angle. I mean, like,
it's
you
not
can see
obvious.
It clearly when you're in the hub.
Right.
It's very, very obvious.
But it's not obvious when you're entering the park. So
again, depending on where you look.
I think what's interesting is everywhere you look at Main Street, there's just trees everywhere behind the buildings. It looks like you're in the middle of a forest.
And like I said, we did have that. It's just, not naming names, someone wanted to get rid of those trees on Main Street in favor of having more space for people to walk around. And look, I understood why. It's just we lost the quaintness of our Main Street in that case.
I think I think we 100% did.
Right. And that was also when they got rid of a lot of benches, too. Because if you notice, Main Street in Disneyland has more benches as well.
Yes.
You have that man who unfortunately passed away. I can't remember his name. That he was always known to sit right there on in the rocking chair on Main Street in front of the old Wizard of Bras shop. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
They had a bra shop on Main Street.
Well, they did. They did way back when. But, also kind of talking about that, you were talking about that quaintness of Disneyland. No other main street anywhere has that sense of an actual town than Disneyland's did.
Nope.
Whereas, because like we said, Disneyland did have that Wizard of Braz shop, but they also had the Magic Shop, which felt like its own home, if you will, in an actual town.
No, they had a bunch of different shops that would kind of reflect the shops that you had in a town.
Right.
Whereas
ours has, the
Emporium is the entire side
right.
of Main Street.
And then you have like the Uptown Jewelers, but then the Starbucks and the Plaza Ice Cream. It feels like
there's not a lot of uniqueness to each facade.
It feels like this is what we know could work in this type of a setting, but not going for the overall feel of a town. Because
right.
even the Emporium on Main Street in Disneyland feels more alive in a town.
It only takes up one quadrant of Main Street, though.
Right. Because,
whereas our Emporium takes
ours
up
is the entire side. Because theirs only goes up to Carnation Cafe.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then walking into the hub, you have this castle, and that's your entryway into Fantasyland. Now, what I find really fascinating about Fantasyland and that whole castle entrance, so in the 40s and 50s and 60s, there were a lot of what I call storybook parks in the U.S. They were just roadside parks. They would usually have some sort of castle entrance, and they would have dioramas or little walkthrough things or some rides depicting different fairy tales. These little parks were essentially just Fantasylands, right? They were very small. In Maryland, where I grew up, there was one nearby called the Enchanted Forest. It had a nice little castle entrance, a couple of those little scenes, a few rides. Very small. Some of these parks are still around today. Most of them have closed up because there's just other competition, other amusement parks, right? But walking up to this castle and the little pathways on the side that go around to Fantasyland and walking through the castle, they reminded me of a storybook park. So I think what was happening is this was just a bigger built as a bigger version of those storybook parks that started showing up. And I think a lot of the storybook parks built after Disneyland were kind of just a smaller version of this park too. It's kind of interesting, but it reminded me of that small park feel, right? And just the attention that's put in to the things like the landscaping and the facade work of the castle. I thought that was really interesting. And then Fantasyland. It opens up into Fantasyland, which is kind of your little European village where you have all these little rides. And it didn't originally look like that. Right. It was more of a medieval fair kind of thing with the tent facades.
Thank you, Tony Baxter, for that redo of Fantasyland, because him and his team did a great job with that.
It's completely amazing. But it's just, and again, everywhere you're looking, because Disneyland is surrounded by hotels, industry, residents, whatever.
It's amazing that you can be in that area.
You don't see anything outside the park.
Yeah.
Because there's just trees everywhere, which I think is really, really cool. But I remember the first thing we did was actually the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough.
Was that the first thing?
That's the first thing we did. You on? Because we were waiting for Thunder Mountain.
Right.
Because we had a lightning lane for Thunder Mountain first. That's the first thing we got in that park. So we did the Sleeping Beauty walkthrough, which I thought was on my bucket list. Yeah. And I thought that was a pretty clever little walkthrough. And then we had Thunder Mountain. And that was our first ride we did there. And the energy.
Did that feel like a worthy of a first ride for you?
Oh, yeah.
Because for the life of me, I cannot tell you what my first ride was when I went to Disney.
My thing is, Thunder Mountain is one of my favorite attractions Disney has ever built. It might be my favorite attraction Disney has ever built. Because it is the perfect family ride. I think it's the perfect family ride. It doesn't have a high height requirement. It's an easy ride for people that don't like roller coasters, right? It is a roller coaster for the people that like roller coasters. But also just how natural Thunder Mountain Railroad as a roller coaster fits into its environment. Especially in Disneyland. You know, and it fits very well in Disney World, too. But in Disneyland, it's right there. It takes up the space of the old Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. So throughout that area, there's still remnants of that original ride that kind of look like a mining thing. And Thunder Mountain is a mine train. And it just, the whole queue, it just feels very natural. It feels like that ride's been there forever. Like, since the beginning, honestly. And, of course, Disneyland's Thunder Mountain was rebuilt in 2012. So they have the really cool exploding lift at the end. You know, the exploding mine and everything at the end. And it's just a really good ride. But then Frontierland just kind of opens up into the rivers of America. And this is, again, you can see where Walt was really involved, right? Because as you look around the rivers of America, you have the little bit of Frontierland facades. You have Pirates of the Caribbean. It evolves into New Orleans Square. And then you see Haunted Mansion around on the other side of the river, right? So the thing I notice is that the Haunted Mansion facade in Disneyland is much bigger than our facade here in Disney World.
Right.
And I think I understand why, and this is Walt's intention. Walt was obsessed with having icons in the park to get you to move towards different things. So having that bigger Haunted Mansion facade across on the other side of the river encourages you to walk around a river.
Well, it's just like what Splash Mountain / Tiana's was and still is down here, where you can be walking right there to the, well, now construction wall area for Piston Peak, but you could see the mountain in the distance, and that was, you know, to a thrill seeker, that would entice you to go over there. Mansion in Disneyland is kind of doing the opposite. It's more of a curiosity kind of thing, saying, "Ooh, what could potentially be in that manor?"
But it still pulls you around the lake, or
absolutely,
the river, and you can tell how good it is at doing that. And the reason is because Walt had a hand in it, and that was his idea. The whole New Orleans Square area is something that's unique to Disneyland, and it's a little bit in Tokyo as well. But the way we have it in Disneyland, it's almost kind of weird because it's between Adventureland and Frontierland, right?
Right.
But Walt loved New Orleans, so I understand why it's there. But it has Pirates of the Caribbean. And I think Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland is very, very clever. And again, Walt had a hand in Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. That was the last attraction he was directly involved in. That was actually built. And I think what's really clever is you have the facade, which doesn't stand out too much at Disneyland. But as soon as you go into the building, you have the boats moving around to the load area. The queue follows the boats, so it encourages you to move around. It gives you a nice little preview as to what the ride is. It's a boat ride, right? And then the whole ride sequence, it starts off with a waterfall. The waterfall is you falling into a dream. Then the whole ride happens where you have the town, the grotto, everything, and all these things coming to life, and these whimsical, story-like things happening to you. And then at the end of the ride, there's a lift that takes you from the lower level up back to the station. And I like that because that's like you coming out of the dream state.
Well, because that was what Walt says in the when they were designing.
How are we going to get you out of this?
How are we going to get you out of it?
You go up the waterfall.
You go up the waterfall. That's right. Anything's possible at Disneyland.
And
I love that.
But if you really look at like the storytelling aspect of it, that lift is you coming out of the dream sequence, waking up back to reality.
Right.
And it's so subtle, but it's such brilliant storytelling, and it's simple, but it hasn't been done like that since. And I think that's because Walt was directly involved in it.
True.
And like, there's just all these little things in the park where you can tell If it's different and it makes complete sense, Walt was involved in it.
You can tell what Walt was involved with in Disneyland versus anything that the company did after his time.
It's just how well it works.
Take a look at Pirates, Haunted Mansion, the Fantasyland Dark Rides, for example, the Matterhorn even too. And then you compare that to Tiana's, Winnie the Pooh, Indiana Jones even to a point as well. But I would say Indiana Jones may be the one ride that truly does capture what Walt would have had a vision of. You know, there are a lot of people out there that say...
I think Thunder Mountain does. And I think it's because I think Tony Baxter is the closest creatively to Walt that has ever been since Walt.
Because that's the thing, is that there are a lot of people out there that think Walt never wanted thrill rides. Walt created the Matterhorn bobsleds.
Yeah.
Which, you know, was basically one of the first roller coasters, truly, kind of, for... Well, it was the first roller coaster for Disney. But then people would say, well, what about Space Mountain? Actually, he was thinking about Space Mountain before he passed away.
It was an idea.
Yeah. You know, and so that kind of brought forth that thrill as well. Do I think Walt would have liked Indiana Jones, Big Thunder Mountain to this day?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
And it's like...
Especially Indiana Jones, because of the level of detail that Tony put into that, and Tony and his team put into it. It only rivals that of, like, Rise of the Resistance, for example. But, you know, one of the reasons why I don't even say Rise of the Resistance, because, yes, that is in Disneyland, it just has too much of it, I believe.
I think I know what doesn't cut it for me for Galaxy's Edge. Specifically, I'm not talking about Rise of the Resistance, and I'm not talking about the Smuggler's Run.
The land as a whole.
The land as a whole. It relies heavily on rock work and natural landscaping. So think about Adventureland, Main Street, Frontierland. They don't heavily rely on it. And if you think about the things Disney has built over the past, you look at, like, Pandora, the Fantasyland expansion in Magic Kingdom. It's just a lot of rock work and landscaping, which it's beautiful, but it's all the same thing, right? So there's not unique things that make that land work.
Right. I would even argue saying Galaxy's Edge just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb to a castle park like that. You have these lands of adventure, fantasy, tomorrow, the frontier, and then a galaxy far, far away.
Well, up until Galaxy's Edge, you've had every new attraction in that park fit in with the land that was already there. Correct. So if you look at Space Mountain, that fits in with Tomorrowland. You look at Thunder Mountain, that fits in with Frontierland. Pirates of the Caribbean fits in with New Orleans Square. Now, the park wasn't built with New Orleans Square, but the way it was integrated into the river. So the river was kind of already there.
Critter Country, to that point, too. That flowed perfectly with Frontierland and New Orleans Square for that point. They've kind of done that well because it is no longer called Critter Country, it's Bear Country, to kind of bring in Tiana's along with Winnie the Pooh back there. But it still blends in the right way.
Well, if you think of Rivers of America as the Mississippi River,
correct,
it works because if everything west of the Mississippi River is the Wild West, and what's on the Mississippi River? New Orleans.
I will say this. The transition into Galaxy's Edge, whether that's, I mean, here or in California, but I think they do it better in California because it's existing rockwork blending in, especially, you know, behind Big Thunder. They blend in so well, and that transition is almost seamless, that to that point it feels like it belongs. But then you get into I think, to me, I think the reason why it sticks out like a sore thumb is because of it being an IP. Okay, it is a singular IP
Yes.
of Star Wars. Okay, the reason why these IPs work in Epic Universe is because they're inviting you to step in to those specific worlds. A castle park is allowing you to step into the world of the frontier, the world of tomorrow, the world of fantasy. And then you have Galaxy's Edge, where it's, let's step you into this specific franchise. And it doesn't blend the right way when you think of it like that.
So, why does Toontown work?
Honestly, I don't think Toontown works either.
There's something about Disneyland's Toontown that works for me. And I'm not quite sure.
The new version of Toontown, I would say. The new version. The old version, look, don't get me wrong, I did love the old version of Toontown. It was the place where Mickey, Minnie, and all their friends lived. It worked. It just, I don't think it worked for a castle park, is what I'm saying. It didn't... And again, this is something that Ron Logan would always talk about, is that Magic Kingdom was the place that the characters lived. Studios was the place they worked, and Epcot was the place they visited. In Disneyland, it was the same concept. Disneyland, that was where they lived. But having that area that they specifically live, I just don't know how that fits in. And again, this is me nitpicking it. Okay.
I mean, the Toontown I saw last year, it works for me at Disneyland, and I think
right. And like I said, I think this version is blending in more like a community, which I do like. I still think one of the worst iterations of Toontown was Toontown Fair.
Here, Magic Kingdom.
Yeah,
compared to Disneyland, absolutely.
Right, but even then, Disneyland's original version still just didn't fit the right way. I think this version is working better to establish that community thing and everything, of Toontown.
I think the way I look at it, because looking at Tokyo's as well, I view it as an extension of Fantasyland. And why do I say that? No, but why do I say that? Okay. If you look at Adventureland, Frontierland, that's based on history, right? Not characters. History. Tiana's is the new exception. Pooh is the new exception, but just roll with me on this, right? Most of the attractions are based on a time and a place. Tomorrowland, same thing. Time and a place. Fantasyland is all about the characters. The characters that aren't real are imaginary characters, right? So, you know, you have Peter Pan's Flight, you have Snow White Ride, you have Pinocchio Ride, you have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. That's where these characters live in Fantasyland. So where does Mickey and Minnie live? In Toontown, an extension of Fantasyland. I think that's why it works for me. Right?
And you have said that you've seen the video of what Toontown looks like in Disneyland. There's... And again, I'm not being biased because I do love Tokyo. It does blend in a little bit better. I'm not a fan of how it quickly transitions, because I do remember, like, you could look at, like, the pavement and it was just like, oh yeah, this is the Fantasyland pavement, and here's where the Toontown pavement starts.
They do that with New Orleans Square and Adventureland in Tokyo, do they not?
Yes.
It's just kind of like a hard cut.
They also do it with Fantasyland and Frontierland.
It's just kind of like a hard cut, which I wonder if that's just a byproduct of trying to build that park in the 80s But
also building it wide enough and everything to handle the crazy amount of crowds.
No, well, yes, but if watching the Imagineering story and such, the Walt Disney Company did not want to park in Tokyo. Remember?
Right.
They did not want to build a park in Tokyo. They were trying to get their stuff together in the States and get everything working consistently in the States and develop their parks here.
But the Japanese kept pressuring them.
And they kept asking, and in order to get the Japanese to stop asking them, they said, okay, fine, you're going to fund this entire thing yourself. We're just going to license our stuff out to you, and we'll build the rides for you, and you're going to pay for everything. And they were like, surely that's going to make them not want this park. No, they said,
the Japanese said, okay.
And they were like, well, now I guess we're building this park. So they didn't actually want to build Disneyland in Tokyo.
No.
And I wonder if in some of those aspects that you mentioned, where they kind of have the hard cut in the pavement and some of the transitions between the lands are a little less thought out, I wonder if that's just a byproduct of A, trying to handle the crowds, but B, we really don't want to build this park.
But you've also had over 40 years to kind of fix that if you truly wanted to.
Japan has.
Right. Japan
But
has.
it works for them because they have a Disney park.
True.
Maybe that's the mentality. I don't know.
But the reason why I'm kind of like talking more about that is that Toontown does feel like it blends in, with the exception of the pavement and everything, in Tokyo better than it does in California. In Disneyland, you literally have to go underneath the railroad track to enter this land.
I think that works as a gateway.
I think I see both sides of it. But the side that keeps telling me is that this doesn't feel like it's part of Disneyland because I'm having to go outside of the perimeter.
But I think that works in its favor. Whereas Galaxy's Edge feels like it's just kind of part of the circle, and it's... Why is this here?
They tried to have it as part of the circle, and I think it's because of how the land is set up in terms of...
Well, because it's set up outside the rivers of America, so you have to walk through the land around the rivers of America.
But the way it still funnels with that circle of Disneyland. Whereas Toontown, it's that one entrance and one exit, right?
Right.
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, 3 entrances, 3 exits.
Well, I also wonder if Toontown may have been looked at the time as a kiddie area. Because...
And it still kind of is.
Well, because a lot of amusement and theme parks, like Kings Island, Kings Dominion, and a lot of amusement parks in the 80s and 90s, and Toontown and Disneyland was added in the 90s, they were very much... You had a kiddie section in your park. Whereas when Universal started building things, especially Islands of Adventure, they had kiddie attractions, quote unquote, integrated into the park throughout the park so that families could stay together.
Right.
So I wonder if that was just Disneyland's response to building a kiddie area.
One exit kind of concept. So, it was psychologically, you could think, well, if I stay right here, I don't find my kids running around, the only way they're gonna be able to come out is right out this way.
So it might have been a thing where like, hey, we have our kiddie roller coaster back here. We got all these little walkthrough things for the kids to do.
We have an amazing dark ride called Roger Rabbit's Cartoon
and we have the meet and greet, but I think Roger Rabbit was the ride for the family / older kids / parents in the land. A little bit,
but remember, it doesn't have a height requirement.
Right.
So it is meant for even the babies out there. And then they decided to also add upon all of that by creating Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway over there.
Which is just adding to the area.
Correct.
In the 21st century, which I'm not opposed to because Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Disneyland blends in beautifully with Toontown.
100%, yes.
The way they've done that queue there, it just blends in beautifully. They did such a good job.
They made it work in Disneyland. They didn't make it work here in Florida.
No, they made it work here.
They tried. I just don't think...
But that's the problem. They made it work here.
I think my problem with the way it works here is that I've been to the Chinese theater. Okay, I've seen a movie in the Chinese theater. I know that theater is not broken up into 2 small theaters. I know that.
It's called suspending disbelief.
Well, yeah. But, when you stepped into the pre-show area there for Great Movie Ride back in the day, that made you think, oh, I'm in the theater seeing the things that I'm going to be stepping into, And again, this is nothing on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. It is a great attraction. It just
doesn't belong in the Chinese theater and Hollywood Studios.
It does not belong in the Chinese theater and Disney's Hollywood Studios. I wish they could have built it over at the Magic Kingdom.
I wish they could have built it over an animation courtyard and just redone that area.
Yeah. What I mean,
but whatever, it is what it is. I mean, going back to Disneyland, I think Toontown really does work there. We did not get to ride It's a Small World because it was closed for the refurb.
Right. I forgot you didn't get to.
Because that's a World's Fair attraction I would love to ride. And then we didn't get to do the Disneyland Railroad either because it was closed.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see the diorama. But there is a land... Oh, before I talk about that, I want to talk about Adventureland over there. Man, is it small.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so good and packed with detail. And it like... Adventureland doesn't... It proves that, just because it's small doesn't mean it's not going to be good. Right? Because in that land you have the Tiki Room, Jungle Cruise, Indiana Jones, the Treehouse, Bengal Barbecue. Which the food in Disneyland is just phenomenal. And I think I was looking at original maps and the original model of Disneyland. Adventureland used to be a dead end.
Right, because I mean...
It used to be a dead end.
You didn't have Pirates of the Caribbean or New Orleans Square back then. And it didn't connect you over to Frontierland like it does now.
That I thought was interesting. But it works.
Wait, no, I think it did go around because...
The first few years it didn't.
How would you get the rafts to Tom Sawyer's Island, though? Because, I mean, Tom Sawyer's Island was 1955.
So the pathway around the river was there. If you heard a little noise, that was the cat feeder going off.
Yeah.
Meow,
$10
meow.
says my cat's not even going downstairs for it.
Scaredy cat. But, so they still had the trail around the river, and there was a little house there, or a little shack, that sold chicken. Like fried chicken or something. It's no longer there. But that's how you boarded the rafts.
Okay. Oh, no, I think that shack is still there. That's the Harbor Galley.
Maybe it is?
Yeah.
It looks too big. I don't know. But regardless, that whole side of the river was redeveloped. Into New Orleans Square, Splash Mountain, Tiana's, Critter Country.
And then it only got even more redeveloped in the 90s when they made Fantasmic.
Because they redid the end for the stage and everything.
Right. They made it an actual, theater setup kind of
thing. I think, but that Adventureland there really works at Disneyland. I think we talked a couple episodes ago. Tony Baxter had a big involvement in it, redeveloping that when Indiana Jones opened. To make the land a little bit more cohesive. But I mentioned Bengal Barbecue, and I want to talk about the food at Disneyland. Because, wow. It's theme park food prices, but the food is really, really good over there.
Yep.
And that's some of the things that blew me away, because, we did a 5-hour flight in the morning, got there at Disneyland, like at 11 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
And we were hungry, so we did a few rides. We did Mr. Toad's Wild Ride after Thunder Mountain. I remember that, and that was phenomenal. And then we went to the Jolly Holiday Cafe.
Yeah.
All I had was a roast beef sandwich.
She goes
All
into
I
the
had
park.
was a roast beef sandwich there. A cold cut sub. It was good. It was good.
Did you try your tomato soup?
I did.
Yeah.
But it was just good.
Yeah.
I was so happy with that. And then we never had bad food in a park. Oh, I think we got the cheesy garlic bread the next day. The cheesy pretzel garlic bread.
Oh, sweet Jesus. And look, I've been going to Disneyland for so long. How have I not known about this cheesy pretzel garlic bread
but nothing
thing
beats,
from Edelweiss Snacks?
But nothing beats at 9 o'clock in the morning having Bengal barbecue.
Oh, amen.
That was amazing.
I told you about that. I was like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. We got to have Bengal barbecue. And you're like, what? You can have those beef skewers and everything like that at 9 o'clock? Yeah, sure. Why not?
No, but the food stands are just open from the park opening. Like, it's crazy.
Well, not all of them.
But a lot of them were.
A lot. A good chunk.
Whereas one thing we didn't get to do that I really wanted to do, but we just never got to it. Tiki Room with Dole Whip. I never got to do it.
Well, you never even got to see Tiki Room?
I never did Tiki Room out there. I never got to it. We kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
There's so much to see. That's the thing about Disneyland is that there's twice as many attractions.
You're going to be going
than
back.
Magic Kingdom.
I know you are.
But I think my least favorite land was actually Tomorrowland. Man, does that need work.
Again, it's been a shadow of its former self ever since they closed Rocket Rods. And to even that point, I would even say since the mid-90s when they closed People Mover. Because Rocket Rods, that concept of Tomorrowland was an interesting one. But I think that was all plagued from the beginning because of the poor management and executive decisions of Paul Pressler. That was at the time when Disney was cutting back a lot.
Killing people.
I don't think they were literally killing people.
Yeah, in the Pressler area, there were several incidents that happened because they were either neglecting facilities maintenance or there was a Thunder Mountain Railroad incident in 2003.
Well, I think that was after Paul Pressler. Because I think
still remnants of budgets and whatnot. It wasn't a good time to be at Disneyland. Yeah. That's also, they lost the Fort Wilderness on Tom Sawyer Island.
Yes. Yeah.
During that era because they neglected the facilities maintenance.
Yeah. And that never... that's still not open.
They built a new one, but it is infrastructure for Fantasmic now.
That makes sense, yeah.
So it's the changing rooms for cast for Fantasmic and support.
But no guests can go back.
You can walk around it, but that's about it.
But going back to Tomorrowland, because you're talking to someone that went on Rocket Rods, okay?
You made it on Rocket Rods?
After waiting like 2.5 hours in this line, because this was before the age of FastPass and everything. The ride just... they boasted because it was the same kind of concept as Test Track, right? But it never really made those top speeds or anything like that because, looking back at it, I can say, wow, how did this even get greenlit because of how much energy it was probably even using to just... As soon as it would launch you right there at the beginning... Slow
down for a curve.
It was literally like, here we go, and we got to slow you down for this curve here. But then we're going to speed you up, but then we got another curve. But we're going to speed you up again, and we got another curve going into Space Mountain. Who said this was going to be a good idea?
It was definitely half-baked.
It was. This was them trying to get into like the Thrill Zone era. And keep that going.
Remember, this is the era where they built California Adventure, too.
Exactly, yeah. Because, when I was there in 1999, I remember seeing the construction of that.
And California Adventure, for the first 10 years of its existence, it looked like a garbage park.
It got better, I would say, in like... They tried to make it better in 2006 when they opened the Monsters Inc. ride, they had opened Tower of Terror, but the park was still missing a lot. And when Iger kind of stepped in 2007 or 2008 to announce that they were going to be doing a massive makeover of that park by changing up Paradise Pier, adding World of Color, the Little Mermaid ride, Cars Land... There was that hope for that park. I would argue that once Cars Land opened in 2012, this park was better. However, it was still living in the shadow of Disneyland.
It still does.
I'm going to argue against that. For a specific generation, and I am not them in any way, shape, or form, Gen Z. Did you notice that when we were there, and I've been noticing this the last few years, I think ever since we kind of came back from COVID, that Gen Z is loving California Adventure. You do not see them over in Disneyland.
Well, it has all the relevant Pixar properties.
You think Pixar is what's driving them in there?
What is it?
I would argue it's just the thrills in general.
Maybe.
Incredicoaster, Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe Radiator Springs Racers to a point, but I think they look at the wait time and they're like, oh, I'm not going to wait that. I'd rather wait that long of a line for Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that's why they're being forced, and I'm going to say this loosely, being forced to add more to this park in terms of IPs and everything to just make it more relevant. But I also understand the concept of why they need to expand California Adventure because of how overrun this is becoming with crowds. I mean, look, Disneyland is still pulling in more crowds than DCA, period. End of story. But it's growing to the point where if we keep adding on to DCA somehow, which they can, thanks to Disneyland Forward, they're going to have... They may be neck and neck one day.
I would agree with that. I think California Adventure does have that potential. I think...
Because let's also take a look at the expansion, too. They're adding Infinity Defense for Adventurous Campus. They're adding Avatar. They're adding the Coco area. They also have that parking area now by the Pixar Place Hotel that they can now manipulate into DCA if they wanted to. We're not seeing anything really going on with Disneyland.
There's not really any room at the moment. Tomorrowland, they could still do things, but I think they have structural issues that they think they need to work out first. Which is why the People Mover track has been vacant for 25 years now, to a point. The problem I think that they have with Tomorrowland is that at one point they probably have to say, let's gut it and redo it completely. Close off the entire land and just redo it. Well, I think whatever happens, I think so. The main drag, so I think in phases is the trick, right? So I think Astro Orbiter, Buzz, Star Tours, Space Mountain stays open, okay?
And then they just close off the back half, and that would be Space
because
Mountain.
The carousel, no, but like the Carousel Theater, Alien Pizza Planet,
the Magic Eye Theater.
You could put something there. I would be okay with a theater attraction going in there. So you could use the existing
Pixar Short Film Festival that we have that works so well in Epcot.
No, but like some new innovative theater show I think would be good. I think could work. But the Carousel Theater building in particular, that's taking up a decent amount of space. Let's put... It's not my job to decide the ride system that would go in there, but let's put a new innovative attraction in there.
And it's a decent amount of space that you could work with. You can work with and have it be a multi-level thing. You also have, dare I say, and this is going to offend a lot of Disneyland lovers out there, you have the Submarine Lagoon and Autopia right next door. Get rid of that too.
I think Autopia should stay. I definitely think the subs should go.
But the thing is with the subs, if the subs go,
yeah,
you can't really do much of anything because you're just working with the lagoon. You would have to get rid of Autopia as well. And I'm gonna say it, I think Autopia is out of its prime. I know the families love that, which is why I would say, in turn, make the Tomorrowland Speedway down here in Florida, make that more like Autopia.
Here's a vision I have. Because objectively, Autopia is the best car driving ride I've ever been on.
Oh, 100%.
I love it. So,
and let's think back to when we were kids. We loved doing that as kids.
No, but I think if you take out the subs, the existing Autopia you have to rip out. I think putting in a new version of Autopia that would work in a layout that would allow a little bit more real estate from the Submarine Lagoon to put something else there could work. I think putting something else in the Carousel Theater would work. Redoing Alien Pizza Planet to make it a more efficient food venue. keep Space Mountain, and then while you're doing that, work on whatever you want to do for the People Mover track. Then once that side of Tomorrowland is done, work on whatever you're going to do with the People Mover track on the front half. And then I think that could work.
The biggest thing with the People Mover track is that with it going into so many buildings that it does, there's no way I think that really bring it up to code anymore. That's why I would say I just demolish it. Get rid of it.
Let's just take it out.
Get rid of the Orbitron, the
because it would also free up more space around Autopia as well.
Correct. But also too, like that center area where the loading area is, it can get rid of bad sight lines, and it can also open up the area. I'm not expecting them to bring back the People Mover.
No, absolutely not. But I think opening that space up would be good.
Right.
So, but like, that's the potential for Tomorrowland in terms of California Adventure, because, you know, I think all the IPs that are in California Adventure right now actually work really well. What's in California Adventure works really well in California Adventure at the moment.
But does it invoke California?
No, and that's my thing. Everything that's there works really well in the park, but I think the park should be rebranded to Disney Adventure like they're doing in Paris.
Disney Cinematic Adventure.
Something like
this
that.
This way you keep the DCA
whatever.
To it.
Yeah, but whatever. But, like, don't tie it down to California, especially if you're putting Avatar in or whatever.
Right.
But that leaves so much more room for ideas. Yeah. And then, you know, imagine if they put something like Fantasy Springs in California Adventure, too. But it would...
Don't you tempt my
heart.
No,
but if they do things like that could get it up to the level of Disneyland, and it could be a worthy neighboring park to Disneyland, because right now it is a decent park, but it's clearly the inferior park to Disneyland, and I think it always will be, but I think it'll bring it, you could elevate it a little bit more to be closer to Disneyland.
Really quick, because I know we're going to try and wrap this up, do we think we could see a third park ever for Disneyland?
Ever?
Yes. I truly think...
In the next 20 years? No.
No. But I think because of what they did with Disneyland Forward... Now, for those of you that don't know what Disneyland Forward... Disneyland went to the city of Anaheim and said, we want to be able to do what we want to do with our land, and you can't tell us otherwise. Because they had restricted them to say, well, where Grand Californian is, for example... that is required to be a hotel. Where Downtown Disney is, that is required to be shopping, dining, and everything. You can't even put a hotel there. So they decided, we want to be able to do what we want to do there, and you can't tell us otherwise. Anaheim agreed, because this was after COVID. They realized, well, Disneyland has...
It is the heartbeat of that area.
Right, because if Disneyland is closed like it was for a year because of COVID, Anaheim suffered significantly. So Disneyland has all that land that they built, that they acquired on the east side of Harbor Boulevard, closer to where we stayed last October, the Suncoast Tapestry. And they're going to now be able to develop a massive parking structure there. I think this is supposed to be even bigger than the Mickey and Friends parking structure or the Pixar Pals structure. So that's going to add more parking spaces to the resort as a whole, and they're going to redevelop the entrance coming in that way. So then this way the shuttles and everything will go over there. So then this way they can build out DCA for Avatar right there. But because they're doing this, the Toy Story lot that is down Harbor Boulevard a little bit, right across from the convention center, it may not be a thing probably in the next 5 or 10 years. Would they develop a third park here? They could. They've got a lot of space to work with.
It's big enough, though.
It is. It may not be, like the size of Epcot or something like that, but I mean, they could easily build another California Adventure there if they wanted to. They could easily build, something as, bigger than Hollywood Studios for that general. It's not going to, like I said, it's not going to be as big as Epcot or Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom or even Disneyland to that point, too. But it's another third park that could probably help them in the long run. And I think that is the idea of that being.
But when you say investment. Long run, 20 years from now, I don't.
Oh yeah. I think their focus right now is, first off, getting that parking structure going, because then they can get the Avatar stuff going, and they can keep expanding DCA. Maybe they can create more of an expansion for Disneyland, fix up Tomorrowland as well, and then let's start talking about that kind of a concept as well. And maybe then that could be like a Fantasy Springs kind of deal. Who knows? Who knows whatever they want to do.
Real quick before we go, I'm going to pose this question. Your top 2 favorite rides at the Disneyland Resort, 1 sentence, why each one?
Indiana Jones in Disneyland, mainly because of the theming and the level of attention to detail and everything. I would also say, I'll make that one for Disneyland. And then for California Adventure, I would probably say Radiator Springs Racers. Mainly because, again, of that detail. But I went in there completely blind as to what that was going to be. And I was blown away.
So for me, Indiana Jones, because it is amazing. That's all you need to know. And Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Because I cannot get over things that Walt had a direct involvement in.
And again, that is the quintessential Pirates of the Caribbean. Ours is nice here in Florida.
Ours is the worst version, but
yeah. Disneyland's not Disneyland. Tokyo Disneyland, really good too.
It's a little bit of Disneyland and Disney World.
Correct, because they
have separate unload and load areas. You don't go up the lift at the end,
right? Because when you're walking in, like you do in Disneyland, in Tokyo's version, you see the boats there, but they have nobody on them because they're exiting.
Right, and they have the Blue Bayou.
Correct.
The building layout in the basement, I think, is actually Magic Kingdom's.
Possibly, you would know that more than me.
But they have a little bit more grotto because the first half of the building is Disneyland, essentially. So, but I think that was a good discussion on the impressions of Disneyland. It is an amazing park. I don't think anything else is ever going to quite match it in terms of spirit and quality and how well the original concepts of it have been executed.
Disneyland is what you make it to be.
Yes.
It's Walt's park, and it will always be. So, with that being said, thank you all again for joining us. Next week, we should be back to you with another show, because this weekend, as we had an episode, couple of episodes back, is Retro Magic for Retro WDW at Coronado Springs. You can look back at that previous episode where we talked with the team developing that. Our very own Matt Rogers will be there in the morning to see that because we do have work.
Got to make money somehow.
Exactly. But he'll be coming.
Feed pitchers don't cut it.
He'll be coming back to us next week with what he heard and everything.
Yep. We're going to go for a few hours in the morning, check it out, see what's going on there. It sounds like a really neat event.
Be sure to follow us on TikTok, because I think you're going to be posting on there.
I'll
Maybe
post
even
a
Facebook.
few things on TikTok, mostly Facebook. I'm still getting the hang of the TikToks.
Yeah.
But
So be sure to follow us, Theme Park Land Podcast, on Facebook to see some updates from over there. And be sure to tune in next week as we talk to you about that. So, guys, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week with another episode of the Theme Park Land Podcast.
So long, everyone.